Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. Hope everyone's doing good. It is Wednesday at 10:44. Had to think for a second. Hope everyone's doing good. Want to thank the new subscribers. Got some new people that subscribed onto this crazy madness called YouTube or the Film Fanatic YouTube channel. Really appreciate that. Also, some new folks that have been commenting on the videos. I always say that that's one of my favorite, or one of my favorite aspects of this channel is just the exchange of ideas and meeting folks out there that have a deep love, I don't know, an eclectic love of film, like a film like that, like I do, and then from there there's always cool and interesting conversations, and then also, it's the exchange of ideas, being turned on to certain films and things that I have not seen, which is the case. I get recommended films quite a bit. If you like this one, you might like that one, and I love that. That's, to me, is the coolest experience. It's really that, and then doing interview segments for the channel is my favorite thing, and I'm working on putting together a big show. Probably, I think it's going to happen next month. It's going to be a little bit of time because of scheduling, so I had to wait a month. And so, yeah, stay tuned for that. Fingers crossed that all works out. Obviously, when you're doing interview shows and putting them together, especially with people who live in different parts of the world, it's obviously more complicated. But I love it. I've done quite a few interview segments on this channel, but it's been quite a while. I mean, it's been kind of a hot minute since I've done any. There are quite a few on the channel that I've done in the last like few years or so, but it's it takes a little while to do it. I'm a I'm a little bit lazy in that department too sometimes, of trying to keep that focused as a priority, just because I end up getting distracted pretty easily, and I end up doing other things. But I'm trying to be a little bit more proactive with getting those things going. So there'll be some more shows coming up here. So stay tuned for that, and of course when everything lines up, there'll be a big announcement around it. I'm in the midst right now of uploading a video. I was a guest. I was on WRFR, which is a local radio show, and it's a show hosted by the local legend Peter Patton, who is a really super cool guy. He's a comedian. He's an actor. He is just a really sweet guy, but he's also such a supporter of local art, local music. And so he has a radio show in Rockland, Maine, which is about 40 minutes or so from my house. And I was a guest on his show for just about an hour, and we were just talking about music and film and things like that. I was talking about some of the projects that I'm doing music wise, and then also talking about this channel. And it was fun. So I recorded the show yesterday. I went down there yesterday and did the show, and then I recorded a video, and it came out pretty good, pretty decent. So I'm uploading it now. So check that out. They'll be coming up soon. And in the time being, or during the same time, since I was down in Rockland, I've always talked about the places that I love to go to buy movies, and my favorite places. And of course, we're all creatures of habit, and my primetime place is Bull Moose, and so, but usually I love going to the Goodwills, especially the one in Rockland is the best. That's such a great such a great spot. I've gotten so many great movies from that Goodwill in Rockland, and I've gotten a shit ton of great music. I got a lot of good music yesterday. Mostly, I still listen to CDs, and at home or mostly in my car. Lately, I've been using. I got this really nice Bluetooth speaker, which was the first for me. I bought a Bluetooth speaker a couple of months ago, and I honestly think it's like one of the best investments I've ever made. It's so cool. It's a higher end one. It's a little bit more of an expensive one. Paid about $80, $85 for it, but it's super awesome. Really amazing quality. I'm just, amazed by that. So I've been using Bandcamp to stream some music. Bandcamp is, I feel, people can support any kind of streaming service that they want, but I feel like Bandcamp is better overall than, well, stupid Spotify. I think they, I don't know, I think they kind of rape their artists, and the quality, the actual audio quality is not very good. There's a lot of compression that Spotify uses. I think, in order to stream their music, and a lot of the times it's either so so compressed sounding, or it sounds like everything is kind of underwater. Bandcamp, though, is the quality is really great, really really good. It's really clear. There's no, I feel like there's barely any compression on it. You're hearing the actual audio from the actual recordings, and the bands and artists that use Bandcamp actually get a higher percentage of downloads and plays and things like that. So they treat their bands, you know, and their artists pretty well. They don't, like, what's his name? I can't think of the guy's name from who owns the CEO of Spotify. He's kind of a, well, kind of a jerk because he'll come out and say that, you know basically say that musicians are lazy, and they're a bunch of crybabies, and they don't know how to really work, and they take too much time between putting out albums and all of these things, and he's kind of an abusive jerk, and so I'm still kind of amazed that people support it, but it is what it is. So yeah, so I stopped since I was down in Rockland. And I was down in Rockland for for a good while, driving down there, and then I was down there for about an hour, and then I had to run down to the next town over. I had to pick up some music equipment that I had left. I had left a bass drum pedal down in Portland at a gig, and a buddy of mine was able to snag it, who lives down there, and he dropped it off at his practice space in Owl's Head, which is down, probably about 20 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes away from where I was at the studio yesterday for the interview. So I went down there after and got my pedal finally, so which was great. And then I was like, hey, I should totally go to Goodwill because it was getting a little bit late in the day, but I'm like, they're probably still open. And I got there about quarter to six, and I had 15 minutes to spare, so that was kind of cool. And there was actually quite a few people in there. They closed at six, so it worked out great. And I have a shit ton of movies that I've gotten at Goodwill, like it's crazy. I get most of my quote unquote normal movies there, if that's a word. The more I love my go to style is, and my favorite style is the sleazy world of exploitation. But I try to bring a lot of variety to this channel. I try to bring, sometimes, again, this is a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe an annoyance of mine, but what do I know really at the end of the day? My head's up my ass, but I'm the first to admit it. But it's funny how clicky things get all the time. Like I don't know. I've never been like quote unquote like a joiner, like somebody who wants to necessarily fit in, and needs to kind of have that label. But I understand the necessity of that. I mean, because there's a lot of things you can do by yourself independently, but then there's a lot of things. There's more things that you can't do without the help of other people, I think. Whether, you're doing some kind of project, or you're trying to promote that project, or, you know, carve out something, some kind of thing, like a collective, or starting a YouTube channel. I mean, you have to like interact with other people, and you have to be able to navigate with working with other people, and more or less be in kind of a group. But I always see like how, and I know it's, I think, and I admit, I think it's kind of detrimental, at least for me and my focus sometimes. But I love a lot of different kinds of shit, and I don't really. Again, it's like one example. It happened to me a few years back. I was trying to book. I was in the midst of booking a quantum show, and I had submitted some music of, and this was a few years ago. I had submitted some music of the band, and the guy who was the booking agent for this festival, got back to me pretty soon, and he said, "I really like the music that you guys, it's cool," and he's, said some nice things, but he said like this stuff that we're doing is mostly kind of, like dubstep kind of stuff. It was a few years back, and it was when Dead Mouse and like Skrillex and all those kinds of guys were huge. They still are, but at that time they were like everywhere. And there was a shift in a lot of electronic music to where a lot of artists were, kind of moving into that direction. And I love some of that music. I really love. I don't really discriminate against music. It's like, or films. It's like it's either good or it's bad. It's either well executed or really cool, or it's not. I don't really think of things in terms of genre. And if it's a certain genre that I am not familiar with, I'll check it out. I'll give it a chance, and I can have respect. Even if it's like, say, music that I am not all that steeped in. Like say bluegrass, or you know certain forms of classical music or opera. Like I'm willing to give those things a chance, and I 10 times out of 10 I always find something I really like in that style. So country, I'm an old school country guy. I don't really like new country, but I find stuff in it that I really like. And so this guy had said, this booking agent had more or less said, well, the stuff that you guys are doing isn't really going to fit in. But he said if you guys can do more, he kind of asked us like if we can do more like dubstep oriented stuff. And I'm like, well, we don't really, I love that kind of music, and I think there's certain aspects of that music that's in our style, but I don't consider us a dubstep act. So, I was, he was kind of asking us to kind of curate our music for that, and I kind of didn't want to do that because I want the music to be real, as far as from my perspective. So I kind of declined that kind of idea and things. And and then sometimes you have to kind of fit into a box, and all these things, and then you have that thing of around, like I love a lot of noise music and a lot of experimental music, and I find that sometimes people who are into that scene won't give other rock music at the time of day, or other bands at time of day, because it's like becomes this kind of elitist exclusive thing, and they kind of talk trash about that group. And then you also have it on the other side of where you have like bands that are into, people that are into like say more conventional rock or what have you. They look at the more avant-garde weird noise thing as just being a bunch of pretentious garbage. And I feel like, so you have these two cliques, and that's like, and that's that thing. And for me, it's like I love music in each of those styles. I don't discriminate, with that. It's like it's good, and I'm willing to check out those things, and I like to try to push myself, and maybe discover something really cool. So like those two groups are both like fractions, two groups that are have this kind of funny, where they'll be critical of each other. And I don't consider myself in that, for that example. Like I can't fit in either into either of those groups. I'm like in the middle, and I don't want to be a part of that. So, and I see that with films. I see that with people who are doing YouTube channels of, say more conventional Hollywood films, and then you have other people that are just straight up doing exploitation movies. And I get it because obviously it's a no-brainer. That's how you build an audience. You have a very set thing. You have that demographic that you want to appeal to, the people who have those particular interests. And I totally get that, and I totally understand that. But it's funny with me. It's like I like a little bit of all of those things, and I have my, obviously I have my things that I always go back to, and my, you know, things I always revisit. But I like a lot of different things, and I try to expand it all the time. So that's the way I kind of have this channel. I try to like show a full variety of different things, and I know at the end of the day that's kind of detrimental and probably hurts this channel because I'm not focusing purely on a particular audience, but it just feels natural for me. So it is what it is. So that being said, I'm going to be doing today's show is on a movie totally left turn from the other movies I've been covering, and that is Mark Wahlberg's Patriots Day. This movie is about the Boston bombing, and this movie is just kind of an extraordinary experience, or it is an extraordinary experience. I've seen this movie about 3 or 4 times, and I think it's I don't know, I do like Mark Wahlberg, and I think that this movie might be my favorite Mark Wahlberg film. He he has such a great presence in this film, and I think he really shows a lot of depth to his acting. He shows himself. He shows himself as his character being really broken and vulnerable, but yet having a lot of courage and strength. And this movie is like just a fucking intense experience. I bought this yesterday at Goodwill, and I was super excited. And I watched it last night, and I was just like blown away. Like, it's such a killer movie, and it's such a horrific story. And I think that they really captured, kind of the whole mood, the whole essence of that tragedy. And this is like a big, huge, big budget, huge studio kind of film. But it has a certain kind of grittiness. There's a lot of scenes where, during the bombing sequences, where it feels like guerrilla filmmaking. It's really gritty, and it's really, really kind of nasty that way. But it's an extraordinary film. It's a really powerful, real emotional film, and it's a great action film. It's really suspenseful, and the story is just like fucking bananas. Really, when you think about what really transpired during that infamous day. Patriots Day came out in 2016. And again, it's based on the real life events during the Boston bombing. That was such a tragic and horrifying experience. It was committed by two different individuals. One of them died during during the whole episode of them trying to, where the police were after them, and they were identified through surveillance videos. Just insane, but you really get a sense of how psychopathic these two individuals were. And it was directed by Peter Berg. But it's such a riveting experience. Like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Great cast: Kevin Bacon, Mark Wahlberg. Um, yeah, it's such an extraordinary story. And from what I gathered, it's it's pretty accurate, historically. John Goodman is also in this film, um, and yeah, it's. I remember that day when it happened. I remember when the actual bombing happened. I was driving with my girlfriend at the time. We were driving. She lived up in Ellsworth, which is about an hour or so from my house, and we were here the night before the bombing. I think we were here and we stayed overnight here at my house, and then the next day we got up and we were going to go up to Ellsworth to her place and spend the day or the weekend up there. And I remember we were driving and we were like we were listening to music or something in the car, and she had her phone and she was on her phone or something, and we were like driving, and we got maybe 7 minutes, 8 minutes away from my house on the way up to Ellsworth. She had her phone and she's just like, all of a sudden she was like, "Holy shit! There's some just awful shit happening in Boston." I was like, "What happened?" And she went to some kind of live feed on her phone, and it was kind of a minute by minute report of what was going on in Boston during the bombing, and it was just like, holy shit, and it just got worse and worse, and I think we like almost pulled over, or we did, just to like understand what the hell was going on, and because it was a terrorist attack, and it was the worst attack on U.S. soil since 9/11, and it was a terrorist attack, so yeah, crazy, crazy times. But Patriots Day is an extraordinary movie. It's riveting. It's such an emotional ride. It's a it's an incredible action film, and it's incredibly suspenseful, and you really get a sense of the scope of how insane the shit that was going on during it, and how the entire city was under um, was in complete terror, where the whole entire city of Boston was shut down. It's a harrowing experience. And again, I've seen Patriots Day. I've seen it probably about 3 or 4 times, but it was only when I saw it. It was like on DVD. This was my first time seeing it on Blu-ray, and I have rented I've rented this movie at Opera House Video multiple times. But when I stopped in Bull Moose, I'm sorry, when I stopped at Goodwill yesterday on the way home, I went right to the movie section and I saw this there, and I was like, oh shit! So I snagged it right up, and it was really cheap, and it's an amazing transfer. Of course, it's Blu-ray. The quality is incredible. What an upgrade! So super excited I bought this, and it's really cheap. And as far as big kind of blockbuster Hollywood films, like that's where the Rockland Goodwill is how I pretty much have completed. I own a lot of the Marvel films, the good ones, and I pretty much have the whole collection of the Marvel movies that I really love, and I've gotten them all at the Goodwill in Rockland, and um, they, for bigger budgeted films, I still find some other, like I've gotten some good low budget kind of indie, even exploitation movies there, but most of the time it's films like this. But really awesome shop. It's the best one that I've ever seen. If you're a movie collector, sometimes it's slim pickings, but you'll always find something really, really good, and sometimes it's really good. But compared to any of the Goodwills I've been in Maine, it's the best one. If you're, buying movies or music, forget about it. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.